of the most common jokes in the D&D community is that a campaign never gets finished, either through scheduling issues, player disinterest, or a TPK can turn your fully thought out adventure into just a thought. But this doesn't always have to be the case. In fact, some campaigns do get finished. In my last 5 or so years of D&D, I've played in 6 campaigns, and 3 of them have been completed. And I know for some of you, a 50% success rate is actually quite impressive. Getting to the end of a campaign isn't just a celebration of what your players' characters have done, it's also a celebration of what you and your friend group have gone through to get to this point. So today, I want to talk about how to end a campaign right. And before we begin, I just ask if you can hit that subscribe button. It's free, you can unsubscribe at any time, and it lets YouTube know that you like small creators like myself. Now, on with the video. Firstly, we need to talk about the differences between the last session of a campaign and any of the rest. The most obvious being that it's the last one. There's no more games after this, so that means that as a DM, you can allow anything to happen that you want to. If the party TPK, then they have to live with that. If they mess things up, then they have to deal with the consequences of those actions. You're at the very end. There's no way for them to mess up future sessions, so you might as well just roll with whatever happens. If you ever thought to yourself, man, I don't know if I should kill a player character right now, the last session is exactly when you should do so. This is because, first of all, everyone is going to be making new characters for whatever next game they're playing, so it doesn't matter that they have to lose and create a new one. They're going to do that anyways, and on top of that, this is when the stakes are at their highest. They can't join the story again if they lose their character. They can't just come back as the twin brother of the character they just played. Their character is gone. And if you've been running your game right, your player should still be fully engaged in the session, even if they can't play anymore because they died. You might want to gauge with your players whether or not the risk of a TPK right at the end is something that they would enjoy. Just because I know that for myself, I would find the risk of a TPK right at the very end of a campaign to be very exciting. And if that TPK did happen, I would still find satisfaction in the end of the campaign. I also do know that there are players, even players at my own table, where if the game ended with the bad guys winning because all the heroes died, well, to them that would be more of an anticlimax. But I'm also not just talking about increasing risk to your party. Now is the time to give them access to the coolest stuff imaginable. If there's something that a player has constantly said they've always wanted, either a magic item or a mount or anything, now is the time to say, here you go, have fun with it. Because again, you aren't going to have to deal with the long-lasting consequences of them sidetracking and tearing apart the campaign. If the campaign falls apart, this is where it ends. For me, when I was running the second last session of my campaign, I was handing out magic items like they were candy. We're talking like +3 armor for anyone who's proficient in it. I was giving enough items to make sure they had maxed out all their attunements. For the wizards, I believe I gave them new spell books, which doubled the amount of spells that they had available to them. Oh, I even offered them 2 warlock levels from the patron of a warlock NPC that they had met. And I did all this for 2 reasons. One, because I knew that the fight that they were getting into was going to be an incredibly difficult fight. And on top of that, I also just wanted them to have access to all this really cool stuff that you normally don't get the opportunity to. Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention this, but have a big final fight. Have a huge battle that the party know or is going to be the final battle, because up to this point, if you've been running your campaign for a while, they've probably gathered a lot of different magical items. They probably have tons of spells that they've wanted to use but haven't really had the justification to use. Especially at the end, they probably have like really high level spells that they haven't really gotten the chance to take full advantage of. And now is the time to make them use every single one of those. It's like getting to the end of Breath Breath of the Wild and finally getting the chance to use all the items that you have been saving up to this point, because you know there's nothing left after this. There's no reason to hold on to anything. A good way to do this is a staged fight. Just like in a video game, when you take a boss's health all the way down to 0, they come back in a new form with new health. You want to prepare multiple stages of encounters that whittle your party's resources down until they have nothing left. The benefit of a staged fight is that if you go in with too many stages, and you realize that the party are burning resources quicker than you had imagined, you can just remove stages from the fight. As long as they don't know how many stages it's supposed to be, just remove them as you need to, or put them back in as the parties seem to be doing better than you anticipated they would be. On top of that, encounters shouldn't just involve the party, but it should involve many of the people that they had met up to this point. I think Baldur's Gate 3 does a great job at this, where you can call down people who you've made allies with up to this point, some of which you made like back in Act 1. Firstly, it's a great opportunity to have the party see their favorite characters again in action, but it's also a good way to have the party's choices and impact on the world to be shown all at once right at the end. Maybe at some point the party had encountered a cowardly pirate, and now when they are facing off in the final fight, they see his ship blasting at the enemy to create a distraction to help civilians escape. Maybe the fighter had taught a young man how to fight with a sword, and now in the final fight, that guy is now fighting alongside the fighter. In a game I played in, just days before where we knew the final fight was going to happen, we encountered a very sick homeless man. And so, realizing, oh, we have like thousands of gold that we're never going to use, we just gave most of it to him. And then, when we went to the final fight, we looked to our side and we saw this sickly old man donned in plate armor, ready to fight alongside us. Now, he did die effectively instantly. However, it did feel really good to see that just random little choices that we made to appear again at the end. Now, what I'm talking about here is running a really big encounter, and that can seem daunting or impractical, but there's a few ways to do it that get the same idea off, that there's a really big battle going on without you having to deal with hundreds of stat blocks. The way that I've always run huge encounters, and the way that I've only ever played in huge encounters, is that you have the party just face off against the big bad and maybe some of his minions. You should probably put more minions than the party seem like they can handle, and then at the top of every round you can describe a friendly soldier or someone who they directly know jumping in from a different part of the fight, killing one of the minions, and then jumping back into the crowd combat that's happening. You want to put more minions than the party can handle, and then you have old friends or just random allies show up and take out a minion as they join the rest of the fight, or they do some damage to the big boss and then go and leave and fight somewhere else. If you're using a battle map, you don't need to place them down. This is just a quick theater of the mind thing to show that the allies that they have are there and doing stuff. Of course, there's many resources online for running very deep mechanics for really big battles. However, if your campaign hasn't been about those really big battles, I don't really see the point in trying to teach your players all of these mechanics for just one fight at the very end, rather than just doing a somewhat theater of the mind style, alright, this is how we get the story forward, while also making it feel big and climactic. Now, maybe at some point you want to make the fight feel more dramatic and intense. Maybe the party feel like they're winning a lot, and you want to step down on that before they've actually completed the encounter. Or maybe you just want to get the party emotionally charged. Then, just at the top of the round, instead of describing that friend of theirs jumping in and striking down a minion, describe them trying to run in, and then the big bad shooting a blast of lightning or something, killing them before they can help in the fight. I mean, realistically, if you have a huge list of allies that have joined in to help with this fight, it only makes sense that not all of them are going to make it. Spoilers for an 80-year-old book, but one of my favorite things about the final fight in The Hobbit is that we don't actually see any of the major character deaths. We're only told about them after the fight's concluded. Now, part of the reason that happens is because we actually do miss most of the fight. Your instinct might be to at least give your players the opportunity to try to save their allies. However, that's just not really how battles work. And if you don't care that's not how battles work and you care more about giving your players the choice to try to save people, then you can do that. However, if you're someone like me who likes to add a little bit more realism and authenticity into combat, then this is the path you should go. However, I do recommend not just picking who's going to die, and rather rolling for it, and actually explicitly telling your party that you're going to roll for it. Generally, if you're just like, oh, I'm killing off your player's father because I want to kill them off, that feels unfair to the character. It feels like almost like you're picking on them. However, if you're like, yeah, I rolled on this table, and this is the character who died, it happened to be your father, I'm sorry. Generally, I've seen that players tend to get less upset over that because it wasn't anyone's choice for that to happen, it was just the way the dice rolled. Now, let's skip the big fight stuff. Let's assume the party of one, they've saved the day, saved the world, everyone's happy. What happens at the end, the final moments of your session? Well, by now, the last dice roll should have been rolled, the last hit point taken. There's no reason to try to have them roll to risk anything else. The risks are over with. The tension is gone. So, at this point, what I recommend is allowing your party to say goodbye to each other in character, and then just have them describe what happens to their character over the next year or next couple years, or maybe the rest of their lifetime. This is a really good opportunity to experiment with letting the players step away from the table, or to mute them on Discord, whatever you do, to have them essentially be semi-removed from the party as their characters leave. Now, I don't recommend having them leave the room because they want to see the other players' goodbyes and know what happens to the other characters. So let them stay, but as each character leaves one by one and explains what they do, if you're in real life, ask them to stand up from the table and step to the side. Or if you're on Discord, ask them to turn off their camera and mute their microphone until everyone's done. It can really hit your emotions really hard when you physically see people standing up from the table, basically physically saying goodbye to their characters, and when it's your chance or your opportunity where now you have to step away from your character and basically say goodbye to the world and the party in the campaign. It can be a really emotional experience. Now, as a little extra add-on to this video, I want to talk about what happens if you do have a TPK in the final session. If you allow that to happen, the party loses, the bad guys win. What do you do then? Do you just allow the campaign to end like that? Well, kinda. Like I said, if the party lose the fight, if they've used all their resources and they cannot win, let them lose. Let evil succeed. Let the world end. Let whatever the bad guys were planning to do happen. If you take things back when stakes are at their highest, when things are at their most intense, you take this back, you take back the stakes, the party are going to know in every single game they play in from there on in that the consequences don't matter, that they don't need to worry about losing because you'll figure out a way to fix it. However, you probably still want a happy ending to happen, but it can't happen in this campaign. Consider asking the party afterwards, say, hey, do you want to run a little mini adventure or even potentially an entirely new campaign within the setting of which this party lost and the bad guys took over the world? A very post-apocalyptic setting where even if the players are playing new characters, they have to look at the consequences of their actions in every city and town that they go to. And that whole campaign could essentially be about making the party fix their own mistakes. So that way, it's an entire adventure about the consequences of their actions, and it lets the party know that their choices are very real and the mistakes they make really do matter, and if something goes wrong, they have to try to fix it themselves. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please click that subscribe button because it tells the YouTube algorithm that you like small RPG channels like mine. For people who are subscribed, I do have some really exciting announcements that are coming up soon, so I really think you should stay tuned for that. Thank you again, and this is the end of the video.